Hello and welcome to the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston. And on this episode, I'm delighted to have with me Jon Courtney from Pure Reason Revolution. Welcome, Jon.
Hi, Phil. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. Now, this coming up to consciousness is been on my turntable a great deal.
Fantastic.
My first thoughts were, this is a dark album. it has had that kind of melancholy, emotive feel that kind of washed over me, and it was it's one of those albums where each time I went back to it, it gave more of its secrets up. There's a lot going on in this album. My entry point for you guys is this album, which was your first one when you returned.
Yeah.
Now, this one, would you say it was almost like, it's the third one in, is it almost like part of a trilogy, or is it a standalone, more concise album compared with those first two that you returned with?
I mean, I haven't thought of it as a trilogy, and so I hope it stands alone. I think that with You Near and Above Sirius, these were two records that to me, they sounded drastically different, but some people, felt these two sounded quite similar.
Yeah.
These two records. And for me, I wanted to shift away from sounding very similar to these two records. And I wanted to move away a bit from like Pure Reason Revolution cliches, as I would call them, always going back to D minor, or always doing this quiet and then very heavy kind of music. And sure, you get that on this record, but I wanted some songs just to stay down and stay chilled. I was listening to a lot of Talk, Spirit of Eden. I was listening to The Smile, listening to Elliott Smith, still listening to my regular stuff like the Beach Boys, Pink Floyd, Smashing Pumpkins. That's always on my turntable, so to speak. But I was being influenced by these other records. So, some tracks on Coming Up to Consciousness just stay chilled, and that's fine. Not everything has to explode into the apocalypse. And there are some perhaps slightly depressing themes on this record that brings it down from the other records. But I hope that there's, by the end, that you get this glimmer of hope, this feeling of hope by the end, that it's not all doom and gloom. It really isn't.
No, it's not. I hope I haven't given anyone that kind of impression, really. I mean, obviously, as soon as I say the first track is called "Dig Till You Die," that makes it sound like we are staying in that furrow. But I mean, it opens up with almost like, because the songs are like interspersed with these like little ambient transitional pieces. It kind of eases its way through, like you said, a little bit of Floyd there as it eases into, almost sounds like the beginning of Breathe, but it's like this very ambient, laid back, floating groove, isn't it? So it's a wonderful entry point to the album. And right. I love,
I think for me,
sorry to interrupt. Anik, the union female vocalist, her voice, your harmonies, both of you, they're just gorgeous.
I really enjoyed working with Anik. We've done shows together, and obviously this is the first record she's sung on. But it was great. She came to Berlin quite late in the recording process, and we blitzed. I think we had 4 days to just go through the whole record. And wow. She sang lead parts, she sang loads and loads of harmony parts, and we did long 12-hour days in the studio, but we had a great time, and we were really pleased with the results. Really, she did a really great job.
And you mentioned because part of your signature sound is there are these kind of like mellow, ambient feel, and this one, 2 minutes in, you have this really aggressive guitar riff comes in, which is again part of your sound, isn't it? Very emotive, angst-driven lyric, but there's lots of light and shade.
Yeah, and we love to play around with this, so you've got these sort of pretty passages, and like, perhaps these sort of groovy sections, but then that's contrasted with something heavy, something pretty wild and heavy. And I guess that's life, isn't it? Really, you have these ups and downs, and I like the light and shade to sort of reflect this.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of putting it. And the next track, Betrayal, again, nice soft vocal, lovely keyboard start. It's good, and again, fantastic female vocal as well. But it's like a wall of sound. So you must have had in your mind's eye when you pull this together. Can you hear it before you even start laying down the brushstrokes of what the finished music's going to be like?
I'm trying to think with Betrayal. This one started. I wrote this one with Greg in Portland at his place, and he's got a lovely little upright piano in his living room. He's got a studio upstairs, but this, living room with a couple of instruments. So we started this one just downstairs in his living room, just with the piano.
Yeah.
He was on piano, I was on guitar. And yeah, we sort of got this, the verse and bridge bit super quickly. We wrote that, and then we went upstairs to the studio and started doing a bit more. And then I think we got it to a certain level, and then I brought it back to Berlin and then sort of arranged the whole thing. But I don't know, did I know exactly where it was going to go from the start? I don't know if I did. There's a lot of trial and error goes in with Pure Reason Revolution. We'll try this light and shade, we'll try these dynamics. And I think at one point this track did actually have like a riffy section, like a hard section, but it really felt too forced to sort of put this into it. So I think after I'd arranged it, I just thought, this works now. This, the arrangement for this just works. It doesn't need anything else. Like very
interesting. Because it's got like a very kind of angst-driven chorus, and it wonders whether when you do that, when you lay the vocals down, are you like singing against like the wall of sound you put in place, or have you already got that from the emotional aspect of the lyrics that you're going to be delivering in that way?
I think with this one, we put the crashing guitars on it. I think I had some guide vocals, but then it really helped to have a sort of ferocious, the ferocious drums in there and the guitar to really help drive a more inspired vocal, a more emotional vocal. So often when the song's building in the writing stages, I'll sing in all kinds of sounds and random words, and then it's later that the final lyrics get crafted and form the song.
Interesting. And the gallows is I love the instrumental section on this. There's got elements of Steve Wilson kind of interweaving to me. I love the piano, but this is one of those songs that live I just feel it could just drift and just for a lot longer than this track is on the album.
We could definitely jam on like the end. There could be a piano solo in there. There could be a guitar solo.
Yeah,
it could probably be another 4 minutes, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it just has that feel that you could just let it go.
Yeah,
it's just let go of the rail.
You're not the first person that's mentioned that, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's just because you're labelled and you'll be in Prog magazine but I put down in my notes here that this kind of music is beyond genres. You've got to label it. You've got to stick it somewhere, but it isn't really, is it? It's kind of it could be it's pop. It's quite funky in places, but we're going to label it prog, but it's not really. It's just, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I guess when we started out, we were, I'm a huge Beach Boys fan. I love their progression from pop stuff to Pet Sounds to Smile. For me, it was super progressive. He was working with Spector's Wrecking Crew, doing all these crazy arrangements on songs, using such interesting instrumentation that wasn't heard of then, that, possibly he was doing before the Beatles, and So we were really into those. We were really into Floyd, where, we got the idea to do really long arrangements, 12
Yeah,
minutes on, this kind of thing. And then also we had grunge as an influence. So, we really were, we were sort of thrown around in genres and then we were also influenced by electronic stuff like Massive Attack and,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Primal Scream. So we did have this sort of mongrel of influences, and we found ourselves in this prog niche, and I guess on a progressive rock label, um, which is fantastic. We have such a supportive label, but sometimes we kind of think, well, who's listening to our stuff, and are we being put in the right place for
Yeah.
what the music is, which is maybe what you're getting to. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is, because this is it's not about the kind of heroics of the instrumentation. It's about the overall feel, emotive feel of the sound collectively that the tracks bring up to the listener, really, in your mind's eye, and how it makes you feel. Which brings me neatly to the next track, which is Useless Animal, because this is a dark track. It's slightly unsettling vocal. There's lots of passion. It's melancholy. It's impassioned. There's those at 2 minutes 30 odd seconds. You've got those menacing metal riffs, even some Hammond organ sprinkled on the top of there. I mean, what is the? There's a story here. It feels like it's about tremendous loss.
Yeah, I mean, this was right at the start of the song. You've got "I'm loading you in." It's the ride to the grave, and it's about the horrible thing. When I took my dog to the vets to have him put to sleep, I used my daughter's old pushchair. So I lifted him into the pushchair, and I wheeled him up to the vets, and it was just like this. Yeah, so this was just a direct inspiration for this track, like right from the beginning. And then Useless Animal, that comes from this animal that's old, that's blind, deaf, incontinent by the end. And some people would say, oh, it's just a useless animal now. But when I sort of came back from the vets, I really had this like life flashing before my eyes moment of like, wow, this dog's 17 years. He was there when I met my wife. He was there when my wife was ill. He was there when we had my baby, when we had Jessie, and he was there through all these ups and downs and consoled us through all these ups and downs. He was always there, and then it's like he's gone now, and it was just, yeah, really, really strange, and really so lots of that went in to the track. Yeah,
it did. Yeah, I mean, when you because of the nature of how you record, and the musicianship and the production of this album is wonderful. I mean, I've said this to other people I've interviewed as well. When do you know literally when to put down your paintbrushes? When you know something is done? Because it must be so easy to just think, just another layer, another keyboard bit there, or maybe another guitar. When do you actually say, that's it, hands off?
Well, I had a good quote from Paul Northfield, who we did our first record with, who, he's worked on Dream Theater, he worked on loads of stuff. But he said, and Rush, of course, but he said to me, he said, Jon, you're never finished, you just stop. and it's true, you never finish. But at some point, the energy, you've sort of given it so much energy through the writing, through the production, getting every aspect just right. I mean, perfection's a dangerous word, but it's, you put everything into it, and then there comes a point, and I guess, often that's with a deadline looming for me.
Yeah, so of course. Yeah.
I've got to round things up now. So yeah, I don't know when it is, but yeah, you never finish, you just stop. And then you're done. And I think if I didn't have a record label and a manager that sort of pushes me, I think I would find it hard to draw this line. I think things could take longer. So I'm fortunate.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Because if you were doing this all on your own, there'd be nothing to say you couldn't spend the next 60 days working on that one track, would there? But if the label says you've got 2 days and we need it by Monday, then that's more of a focus, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely.
I love the next one, Worship. again, lovely harmonies. I love the guitar as well. It's a bit of Dave Gilmour kind of riding across the top there. Lots of atmosphere. It's quite and those machine gun type riffs, guitar riffs as well, are great. But it's quite funky. But it's got angry vocals. I mean, the amount of emotions going through the vocals. It's almost like a little bit of theatre for the ears. And I've used that phrase before, but it is like that.
Yeah, definitely. And this one definitely jumps around through a few different things, and harmonically, this is one of the things. So I mentioned before with the previous albums, I wanted to move away from like John specials or Pure Reason Revolution, doing the quiet loud thing. And sure, you get that, but
yeah.
I picked up my jazz guitar book, and that often gave me some good starting points for tracks. I just needed one chord, and then I was off. And also, I wanted to play a bit more with a little bit of dissonance, so you get that in this track in a couple of places. And yeah, hopefully it sounds a bit different to the other stuff.
And again, Anika's wonderful, haunting vocals towards the end as well.
Yeah, no, that was really fantastic when she did those parts at the end. I think I'd sort of had a mumbled part in there. And she said, "Oh, shall I try singing these?" And I was like, "Yeah, definitely. You sing away." So, yeah.
No, it's absolutely beautiful. The next one, Bend the Earth, but starts with almost electronic drum pattern. I love it's very dreamy kind of shuffle almost feel to it, isn't there? Again, you and Anika, just the vocals just matching, sitting there in space really. But this one just builds and builds, and it's almost got a bit of funk and towards the end in the bass and drums.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, this is another one that I did with Greg in Portland. And this has become sort of a bit of a surprise favorite on the record. I really sort of wasn't expecting so many people to be so into this one.
Yeah.
What's brilliant when I work with Greg, because I've known Greg since the Dark Third time, so I've known him, best part
a long time.
So when we write together, we're really quick with references. I can say, "I'll try some piano that's a bit more Beatlesy or something," or let's try some drum beats that are a bit Radiohead in Rainbow or something. So we're on the same page for the references and things. And I think with this, we wanted to go for this slight radio-heavy drum thing. I don't know where the shuffle came from. I think Greg, he just jumped on his drum kit and it just seemed to work. So we were like, yeah, that works. Yeah, and it was a really exciting, creative time doing this.
It's another one, isn't it, where if you play this on live, you could just go and it will just, it's a great feel and groove towards the track as it moves towards the next one, which is Lifeless Creature. This one reminded me at the beginning, there was a flash of bit of Floyd in there with Shine On Crazy Diamond, but also almost like a John Carpenter soundtrack from one of his early films. It got that kind of feel to it to me. Again, great guitar riff and harmonies, etc. This was it made me feel quite reflective, almost like falling inside yourself. It's kind of got a very interesting feel. What's this one? Lyrically, where's this one coming from?
Where does this one come from lyrically? Let me have a quick look at the lyrics. I always have to print out the lyrics so I can have a quick look. I have got them here. I think this was going back to looking at this. I mentioned this life flashing before your eyes when I came back from the vets, and this is, there's a lot of this in this track as well. There's
I thought so. Yeah.
I sing the hold on a minute, I'm just flicking through sheets of paper.
It's okay.
Yeah. I'm a man of many notes, so when I'm writing music, I'm always scribbling stuff. I guess this is a slightly right at the end you've got I see the writing in red, I see the cancer, the womb, the alcoholic is dead. This was right at a time that I'd Dennis had been put down. I was feeling slightly better about things, and then I had this possible brush with asbestos, and I really felt like um, I just had these feelings that death was very imminent for me, probably very imminent for my family because perhaps they'd been exposed through me. And then at this point, this is when I found myself at the doctors pretty sharpish, and then with psychologists and psychiatrists. And then some of this stuff went straight into this track. I met with my friend Craig Walker, who sings in Archive, and I'd had this dry patch from writing, and I told him about the crappy few months I'd had and some of the things that had led to this. And he was like, John, this has been a really rough time. But he said, what you just told me, he's like, there's an album's worth of material here. It's like that thing you just, you described about taking your dog to the vet, the light flashing before your eyes, the asbestos thing. He's like, these are all tracks. He's like, get this down in writing, even if the music's not there, get it down in lyrics. And then that's what I did. The very next day I started writing, and then that's when the album came out super quick. Then the album was written within a few weeks. I mean, sure, the production took longer, but yeah, it's about picturing yourself at the end, this lifeless creature, and reflecting back on your life. Did I do all the things that mattered? Did I spend time with the people that I should have done? Did I spend too much time in the studio and not eat enough ice creams in the park with my daughter? Stuff like this.
Yeah. I think that's why I said at the start, when I first listened to it, I thought this is a really dark album. I picked up about the dog, and obviously the artwork is also representative.
Yes, yeah.
But I wanted to ask you about Lifeless Creature, because when I was listening to it, I just put down like it. I felt this sense of angst in myself. I felt emotional. I felt like I was falling inside. To think, it's making me focus on where I was and what I was doing, and it made me feel quite reflective. But musically, again, it kind of carried those emotions for me, because I mean, as a musician, a creative person, it does take courage to open up your heart to feel that kind of level of potential pain and inevitability, etc. And it is like when you're writing songs, you let this out into the public domain. It's like letting go of a child, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah. And it is, when the album comes out, you have this huge kind of, you have this contraction because you feel this huge sense of vulnerability, like, oh no, it's going out, but also excitement because it's going out there too. So it's this real sort of whirlwind of emotions. But, I'm super lucky to be a musician where I can, I write lyrics, I write songs, and making this album was hugely cathartic for me. I got it all out. Sure, there was still healing to do along the way, but it really helped me in getting through this difficult chapter.
I mean, did it? Because that's a good point. Because I mean, from what I do at Now Spinning Magazine, our kind of strapline is music is the healer and the doctor. So, I mean, the question I'd like to ask is, obviously, as you wrote all this down and you put it into music, did it actually really help heal you moving forwards, and not so much put it behind you, but help you put it in context and perspective?
No, absolutely. And I can now look back on like the difficult 2 years as it being a real learning experience, and a positive that I went through it. Like, if you'd have asked me 18 months ago, I was still in the thick of it and I couldn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, but now I can see the whole thing as a positive. And also, I've had wonderful feedback from people that have also had animals put down too. And if this music and these songs can help them in some way, and can give them some solace through a difficult period, then the reward of that is just beyond words. That spurs me on to make music for another couple of years or more. That fires me. That's incredible to hear, incredibly touching.
Well, I think it's not just an animal. I mean, I love animals. We've got cats here, but I also felt that when I was listening to, Useless Animal and Lifeless Creature, it reminded me of my mum sadly passed away of dementia, and it's kind of a feeling that it brought all that back, but not in a bad way. But it made me you put things in perspective and how people are seen, whether it's a loving a dog or a human being that's all of a sudden they're not seen as useful or as past their sell by date, whatever.
Oh,
It's the same kind of
totally.
thing. And then the last
Totally.
track, As We Disappear, I suppose has that sense of feeling as we disappear into the ether. But I love this as well. I felt this had a really upbeat, positive, almost poppy rock vibe, and it got a very hypnotizing wall of sound to it. And it was a great way to head towards the end of side two.
Yeah. I mean, this song came from, it was originally titled Rosengarten, where we put my dog's ashes in Berlin in the garden. But then Jill's work, so Jill's artwork has been on the last three records, and it has this incredible knack for coming into my life with a really poignant like picture. I'll see one of her artworks and think, wow, like that's completely connected with where I am right now. And yeah, I saw this piece and just knew immediately it had to be used for the album. And it had the title As We Disappear. And I thought, well, I like Rosengarten, but wouldn't it be nice to tie this in with this last track? It's about the ashes going into the ground, dispersing into the earth. So I think this fits nicely and it brings it all round to a nice conclusion.
Yeah. And you're not long now before you go on tour, isn't it? So are you... And that starts at the end of this month in Germany, France, I can see here, and the Netherlands. Have you decided on the set list yet? Or how many tracks are going to be emerging from this album into the set?
I think for now, you know what? We're just going to be adding one for now.
Ooh, one.
So when we come to the UK, I'm hoping it's going to be two by then. So we're just going to be adding Useless Animal for these shows. Because we've got festivals and then we're doing some co-headline shows, so we don't have an ever so long set. So it's quite compact, and we've got quite a few albums now. So it's sort of like let's give it a balance.
That's true. That's true.
So, but I think come the England shows in December, then we'll be adding a couple by then. Yeah.
Oh, that would be great. And which one did you say was probably going to be in there? Was it Lifeless Creature?
We're adding Useless Animal.
Oh, Useless Animal. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So
but I do think, John, that as I said, it's an album that continues to deliver the more you listen to it.
Yeah.
There were hidden corners to it. So when the first wave, it's quite a lot to take in. Although it's not complex music, there's a lot going on. And I think it's, and I absolutely loved it. So for those of you listening and watching, stream it if you don't know what it's about, but go and buy a copy on vinyl or CD. And so people want to find out more about you. Is it purereasonrevolution.com or official?
You know what? I can't remember.
Well, I will. I'll put it on the credits. Yeah, it's purerevolutionofficial.com. Well, thanks very much, John, for all of your time today. It's been great talking to you, and I absolutely love the album. And it'd be great if one or two tracks do appear from this, because I do think it's one of your finest. And I think because it works on so many levels, not just as a musical experience emotionally, but also lyrically and how it makes you feel, and the kind of tricky subjects that you've covered in a way that's not dark, but actually at the end of it, very reflective and uplifting.
Fantastic. Thank you, Phil. I'm very pleased you connect with it.
Thank you very much. Well, take care, and hopefully I'll talk to the other side of the tour. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Phil. See you.
Bye-bye. A huge thank you to my guest, Jon Courtney from Pure Reason Revolution, talking about the album Coming Up to Consciousness. It's a wonderful album. It's one of those albums that with each play, it gives away more of its secrets, that kind of Porcupine Tree, Steven Wilson, Floyd, but equally electronic, Massive Attack. There's just so many layers of things going on here. But the vocals by Jon and Anik and Shireen, how they float between each other, these beautiful harmonies, and then you've got these soft ambient sections interspersed with these heavy riffage areas as well. And lyrically, yeah, there are some dark things, especially about losing a beloved pet, or thinking about reflecting on our own time on this planet. But it's done so well that by the end of the 40 odd minutes, you feel you've been on a journey that is reflective, uplifting, and it is certainly a really, really beautiful listen. So that is out now. It's out on Inside Out Records, and go to purereasonrevolutionofficial.com. I'll put the link to the website for the band, and they're on tour. By the time you watch this, they'll be out on tour in Germany and France and the Netherlands. But catch them live, but make sure you buy a copy of this album on CD or vinyl. Stream, which is fine to discover, but then support the artist by buying the physical product. So you've got it there in front of you so you can play it. So thank you for watching. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. Please visit the Now Spinning magazine website at nowspinning.co.uk. You can buy merch from nowspinningmagazine.com, and you can become a patron, YouTube member, wherever you are on social media. We are there as well. Oh, and subscribe to the podcast. Take care, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.